What is going on, Colts Nation? Welcome back to another episode of Colts Brawl. We're finally all together. What's up, my friends? It's good to be with you. It's good to be with our listeners as well. Lots of stuff has happened. Today, when we're recording, and just the last couple, since we were last recorded, a lot has happened in the Colts sphere. Lots and lots of stuff that we're going to get into today in Colts Brawl. I'm super excited to do so. Before I do so, how are you guys doing? I feel like we haven't all been able to connect before now. How are you guys?
Yeah, it's definitely been a little bit since you and I, Cody, have last spoken. I've been caught up with some NBA stuff in the Mavericks, and now that they're officially eliminated, my full attention has come back to the Colts. It's definitely a crazy, stressful time right now because NBA playoffs, training camp, trying to battle the two. It was crazy, but I enjoyed it. But you know, I'm feeling good.
Yeah, awesome. I mean, it's been, a quick turnaround since we last recorded, but like you said, a ton of news has come out. A ton of things have happened. I'm really excited to see where the Colts go with this roster now that they have to make cuts. There's so many guys that you want to see make the roster, but tough choices are going to have to be made. We're already seeing some of those, but I look forward to what this 53-man roster is going to shape out to be.
Yeah, it is going to be interesting. And the Colts are cutting this Saturday, so going to certainly be interesting to see what happens. Colts have already made a cut. I guess we can go into that. They cut Roosevelt Nix. They signed him this offseason, fullback, formerly of the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, initially, I didn't even think of when people ask me about, surprise cuts, I didn't even, think about Roosevelt Nix. I kind of forgot he was on the roster, honestly. But just kind of hearing what's been happening in training camp and then, just with the injuries at tight end. I think it makes a lot of sense. I want to get your guys' take on this release.
For Nix, initially when this signing came out, we thought it was going to bolster the running game. And we certainly thought that he could possibly make the roster by that last tight end spot. And really his main contribution was going to come from special teams. Now you have guys like Isaiah Rodgers, Jordan Glasgow, who, in my opinion, it's looking like a fair shot that he can make this roster. But with Roosevelt Nix, heard there's been some fumbling problems going on, and, that's just not something that we need on this team. Those mental mistakes, probably giving the opposing offense extra chances, that's just not something we need. So it doesn't come to a surprise to me. I thought with the addition of these other tight ends, Andrew Vollert, for example, I thought it was going to be a little bit difficult for him to make the roster in the beginning.
Yeah, I agree. I was a little surprised because, to me, the fullback position is blocking and it's going to help bolster your run game, which we're set to have a really good, running core this year. So I thought, he was a sure lock in. You don't go out and sign a fullback of his stature and his experience to just then cut. But yeah, like you mentioned, with the tight ends, with all these other rookies kind of shaping out here of late, it kind of makes sense that they're going to move on. I mean, our offensive line is so strong, and we can use some tight ends in the mix as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I originally just kind of envisioned him kind of if you remember this name, Ryan Hewitt from a couple years ago, he was just a strictly blocking tight end. And the Colts just used him as that. I mean, I think he had in total one receiving touchdown in his time in that season. That's what I kind of thought they were going to do with Nix a little bit. But, yeah, certainly a little bit of a surprise for sure. I mean, overall, just considering, the Colts have really never had a fullback. So I was I'm intrigued to see what they do with him. But obviously, with, like I said, with the injury to tight end and just the poor performance in training camp, something had to happen. So, obviously, now Nix opens up a roster spot for, potentially we think about, another tight end if Trey Burton's injury bleeds into the regular season like we think it will. And then also keeping a guy like Jordan Wilkins on the roster, I think it makes a lot of sense. Jacob, do you want to take us through some of the other topics surrounding the Colts?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'd like to talk about the activation of Julian Blackmon. I think this is super important. I mean, the Colts kind of drafted him knowing he had this injury, but from all intents and purposes, I mean, the front office and coaching staff are super excited about his ability to get off this list this early. And I think, Frank Wright said it was like a testament to his character and his work on rehab. And I think they're really excited to see what he can do. But also, our secondary, we got a lot of guys that can kind of fill this spot. So how do you guys think Blackman's going to fit into this roster this year?
I mean, first off, it is a surprise to see how fast he came back. All of us thought he'll be activated in October, but obviously he's activated 2 weeks before the season starts. I don't envision it's hard to tell how much practice he'll get. I imagine a lot of it's going to be on the sideline stuff, a lot of stuff with trainers, maybe just some one-on-one stuff. That's really it. I also envision him being a healthy scratch week 1 because, you still want to get him back up to speed into the defense. Classrooms are good, but getting on the field, actually getting reps, mental reps, getting your body back into football shape, that's going to be big. That's why Tavon Wilson was a signing that I didn't think he would make the roster, but obviously it looks like he's going to make the roster. So that's going to be pretty good for him. And for Julian Blackmon, as far as I know, I'm really hoping for some good things from Julian Blackmon this year.
Yeah, and I know you said, Michael, you envisioned him kind of working on the sidelines. He was doing that today. And Frank Reich was even talking about how incredibly amazed he is at how quickly Julian Blackmon recovered. And I think we've talked about it on this podcast before. Obviously, you would never want an injury for one of your players. But if you have an injury that significant, you'd probably want it to be earlier on, coming into the league or in college, as opposed to when you're, 30, 35, whatever it is. It's a lot easier to come back and come back quicker when you're, that young. And so Julian Blackmon, I think the cool thing with Julian Blackmon's situation is the fact that the Colts have 4 legitimate safeties ahead of him right now that you feel like you're pretty comfortable with them on the roster to start the year. You mentioned Tavon Wilson, Malik Hooker, Kari Willis, George Odom, those other guys. I mean, they're all solid players that have seen starting reps. And so the beauty of this is you don't have to force him to really do much as he's coming back and getting acclimated with the league. He can practice. He can get ready for that. And he's not going to be forced into game action, which I think is big for him. So I'm super excited to see what he does, but I'm also happy with the depth that the Colts have at the safety position that allows him really to not have to take the field, early on.
Yeah, and I think that's extremely important, especially with, the ACL injuries and the leg injuries like that. You want to make sure that they're rested and ready to go. You don't want to rush them back into it, have them tweak it or have them tear it again because, as you can see, guys that have, 2 or 3 tears are it's so hard for them to come back. But, yeah, I'm really excited about a lot of our rookies this year. But Julian Blackmon was high on my list. Glad to see he's back. And I agree. I think, we won't see him initially, but hopefully we get to see him in the mix maybe later on in the season. So we could also, I was looking about this. We've also had some significant injuries. We've had Julian Blackmon come back, but we've also had injuries during our training camps. As of today, Paris Campbell, George Odom, Kamoko Toure, Trey Burton, and Sheldon Day are still out. Are you guys concerned about any of those injuries going into the season, just past training camp, week 1, week 2 stuff?
Man, it's Indianapolis. Injuries are just – I don't know what it is with these injuries in Indianapolis. I'm not trying to, jinx the team, but this is just not a good sign early on. Kenny Moore dealing with the groin, just like Pierre Desir last year, those groin injuries linger. They linger. You're a cornerback. You make a lot of sudden movements, and the groin doesn't really like all that. So, I even have the other list of injuries right here before me, and, Kenny Moore, Julian Blackmon, Trey Burton, Paris Campbell, Kamoko Toure, Zach Pascal. These are already big-time contributors. Kamoko Toure, that's kind of not a surprise. I don't envision he'll play week 1 because he's still rehabbing and trying to get stronger on that ankle. Paris Campbell, that's not his fault. Freak accident. Hope him and the other person are okay. I hope he can come back because we still need to figure out what this wide receiver crew is. And with Zach Pascal, Paris Campbell currently dealing with injuries right now, it's not a good sign. People say, oh, it's only week 1 Jacksonville, but what about the other 16 weeks? What about the other 15 games? And I don't know about you, Cody, but I have gone back and forth on my predictions for the Colts this year. I don't know if we're going to get a good Phillip Rivers. I don't know if we're going to get choking Phillip Rivers. I don't know if this offensive line is going to hold up well. I mean, you obviously think that it will, but I mean, come on. Things can happen. The wide receiver crew, what's going to happen with them? I have been going back and forth. I still don't even know what's going to happen. I still haven't even made my final predictions or expectations for Phillip Rivers come up so often. I don't know why in Indianapolis, but also some just lack of execution too.
Mm-hmm. Well, the fortunate news is that Zach Pascal returned to practice. Kenny Moore returned to practice. So those are certainly good signs. The only one I'm really concerned about is Trey Burton's. I mean, you think about it, he's probably going to miss a couple weeks. And, I mean, Jack Doyle's a good player. We think Mo Alley-Cox potentially will hopefully be a little bit more involved in the receiving game than he was last year. But I guess for me, it's just like you don't really have a guy outside of Trey Burton that can stretch the field like you want. His loss is going to be significant, whether that be 2 games, 3 games, whatever it is. Trey Burton, that one stings a little bit, and the other one I'm just not sure about because literally we've gotten no timetable is Sheldon Day. I mean that injury just kind of came out of nowhere. They're like, oh yeah, he's struggling with a knee injury, and that's all we heard. And they haven't given a timetable, and I hate that when coaches do that because it just tells you nothing. You're like, I want to know kind of a timeline. If they're out for a month, tell me they're out for a month. But Frank Reich doesn't do that a lot. So, I mean, those two are the ones that really concern me. Fortunately, also Paris Campbell was with Julian Blackmon on the sideline working out today. So that's good news. Hopefully he's back very soon. I know he was struggling with that concussion from that car crash. But, I mean, yeah, just little injuries coming up. Hopefully, obviously, that none of them are lingering. It's certainly good news that a lot of these players came back, but there's still some injuries that are worth monitoring. So I don't know. I mean, I'm really kind of interested to see what happens with some of these injuries and if it holds any of these guys out week 1. But, yeah, you're right, Michael. For whatever reason, the Colts have just gotten plagued with injuries the last couple of years. I mean, last year they were down to who would we probably say is potentially number 4 receiver in Zach Pascal and number 5 receiver in Marcus Johnson. That was your 1 and 2. That's how bad it was at one point. So here's to hoping that they can stay a little bit more healthy. But here's what I'll say. The good news is that the Colts have so much more depth everywhere than they had last year. I mean, heck, with Sheldon Day, you're like, okay, we're all right. Tyquan Lewis is playing well. Robert Windsor's been playing well in practice. And there's just a lot of depth, which I think is good. So injuries suck, but fortunately I feel like the Colts and Ballard kind of learned a little bit from last year and now have some more depth, especially at the safety position. I mean, my goodness, They are stacked at the safety position with depth. It's pretty incredible. So, yeah, that's where I'm at.
To piggyback a little bit off what you said, Cody, when it came to that came out of nowhere, if this was regular without COVID, we would have known that at the beginning of August. We would have known that way sooner than what we figured it out now because we're all at training camp. All media's at training camp. Right. We're putting it out there. So that's my point number 1. I think Sheldon Day, obviously, my early prediction for the roster is the Colts are going to carry 10, including Sheldon Day. They're going to carry 10 because obviously with him, he's going to miss the start of the season. You obviously got to have some more depth at the nose tackle position. So is that going to be Danique Autry? Is that going to be Robert Windsor? I don't imagine that'll be Tyquan Lewis because I just don't look at him as a nose tackle. So that's probably the biggest thing to me. And when you said about Mo Alley-Cox, we've been saying the same thing for 3 years. Is this the year that he's going to break out? Is this the year that he gets more involved? Mm-hmm. I'm sorry to say, guys, y'all know I'm a realist, but I'm kind of off the Mo Alley-Cox bandwagon. He is what he is. I've seen what he can do, what he can't do. I mean, if he was that good, the Coach Reich would get him the ball more, would try to get him the ball more. And I just haven't seen any kind of effort to get him the ball. And if there was one critique that I would make to Chris Ballard's offseason, is not targeting a tight end in the draft. I mean, you look at the undrafted free agents, Thaddeus Moss, Hunter Bryant. I mean, you look at these guys that went undrafted. I mean, I kept saying Trey Burton, and we signed him literally 2 days before the draft? So you said, okay, that eases the need for a tight end, but I think the need of a tight end is still there. And we didn't take one, and we're certainly paying for it now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's especially when you brought in Trey Burton to be that number 2, and then he has to step up because Jack Doyle's got an injury, now Trey Burton's got an injury, and now you're relying on, Mo Alley-Cox and Farrad Green. So, yeah, I do like all the rookies we got, though, in the draft. But I agree, it would have been nice to have some more depth at the tight end position, especially now that you're seeing, like you said, I mean, we got 2 injuries to our number 1 and 2, so you're really going to have to figure something out moving forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, Jack Doyle also returned to practice, so that is good news. Really, really good news for the lack of depth the Colts have at tight end. I mean, good grief. It was bad. When Mo Alley-Cox and Farrad Green are your only pass catchers, you got an issue. So certainly great to hear them coming back, and hopefully Jack's all good for week 1, honestly.
Yeah. I don't worry about Jack, man. I just don't worry. He's a guy that you just don't worry about. I mean, he's going to be there. He's going to tough it out. He's going to be a great football player.
All right, well, let's keep it with the pass catching core here, and I just want to kind of highlight some wide receiver play that we saw in the last live scrimmage. Reese Fountain had a great showing by all accounts. He got 4 passes from 3 different quarterbacks, including 2 from Brissett. He had some key catches on 3rd and 7 in those crucial downs, and he connected with Eason, which was the catch of the day, in double coverage for a 36-yard completion. So by all accounts, he's having a great camp, showing really what he can do, trying to earn a roster spot here. And then the rookie wide receiver, Michael Pittman Jr., he hauled in 3 straight receptions in the second half to kind of come out firing out of the gates. And he had a 2-yard touchdown reception from Rivers after 2 failed attempts in the red zone. So it seems like he's going to be one of those big targets, as big of a frame as he has. But there's also been, some accounts that a lot of rookies have been, dropping the ball, and there's just been a lot of drops in general from the receiving core. So first off, what do you guys think of the wide receiver core we have? I know we just talked about, at one point, Zach Pascal and Marcus Johnson being the 1 and 2, but what do you guys think about the depth we have there now?
I think the depth is good. I keep going back and forth, but overall, I think I'm comfortable with the group we'll have going forward. And let me tell you, my wide receiver depth chart predictions have been going back and forth all training camp. I mean, right now, I have the obvious 4. Cody knows I've been saying the Colts will carry 6, but now because of other needs at other positions, I'm going with 5. And the 5th person, it's not Marcus Johnson. It's not Desmond Patman. It's not my guy, DeMichael Harris, who you said, I'm going with Reese Fountain. I mean, I think he's separated himself from what I'm hearing, separated himself more than everyone else. And he can be a good special teamer. That's even better. With the drops, I mean, we kept talking about Michael Pittman doesn't drop things, and now he's been dropping about, I think, 10 balls. I mean, my goodness, what is going on, man? I mean, is it Michael Pittman? Is it great corner coverage? Is it a bad throw? Which one is it? These are the things why I can't stand right now. We can't be there at practice. We can't see what's going on because there's so many elements to why there was a fumble, why there was a misread, why there was a drop, why there was an interception, all these things. So, but overall for the wide receivers, I'm pretty comfortable. I'm pretty confident in them. T.Y. Hilton is going to do T.Y. Hilton things. I'm still hoping big things for Michael Pittman, Paris Campbell, Zach Pascal, and hopefully Reese Fountain can show up.
Yeah, I'm always of the belief that if you're going to be like a number 5, number 6, you got to play special teams. And so Ashton Doolin's a guy who was a key special teams player. And I've been saying this for a while. Like, he's fast. Like, I feel like a lot of people don't realize how fast Ashton Doolin is. But, with the release of Nix, I kind of think you can still roll with 6 wide receivers now. Maybe you just add another tight end for Trey Burton, obviously now needing to recover. So, for me, I would say probably I was going to go Marcus Johnson initially, but this is his first time back. Like, he has only a few days to prove that he belongs on this roster. So, as good as he was last year, I mean, I'm good with Reese Fountain at this point at 5. And honestly, I would have Ashton Doolin at 6. And that's kind of where I'm at right now. And it's, in terms of 2 to 4, that's still up in the air for me. I'd probably have Pascal at number 2 right now. And that's just right now. I mean, Pascal was a great player last year for the Colts. Despite how bad their passing offense was, he was one of the lone bright spots in the passing offense. So I like Pascal a lot just simply because he's familiar with this system. He's a good player. He's young. He can continue to develop. And I really think he's out there making plays, and I would definitely give him the nod week 1.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Reese Fountain is the guy that they've been trying to get back and really working with, because I think if, after his initial injury, if they wanted to move on from him, they could have very easily before this season. But they kept him around and really worked with him. And by all accounts, I mean, like I said, he's having a great showing and really trying to earn this spot. And, yeah, I'm with all of you guys. I love this depth at wide receiver. If we can get Paris Campbell, Mike Pittman Jr., and T.Y. Hilton all on the field at the same time, I mean, that's scary. And I just love that we're finally going to be able to let, like you said, Michael, T.Y. do his thing and hopefully draw some coverage off him with Paris Campbell and Pittman. I really like the offense this year. And, I'll just transition now into Rivers. He's still performing at the Rivers expectation. He finished with 16 completed passes in their last live scrimmage, and we all saw, he connected with Ty for that 47-yard touchdown reception. He was dodging blitzes and throwing, just dimes down the field. But I know there's some hiccups in his game, and we all acknowledge that. But what are you guys hoping to see out of Rivers this season?
I can't get over the awkward throwing motion he has. I mean, that just looks so weird to me. I'm going to be honest with the Colts fans. I'm not expecting big things from Phillip Rivers. I mean, he's 39 years old. He's not a 26-year-old quarterback who got cut, and now we're left wondering who he is. We know who Phillip Rivers is. He can be a fiery competitor, but when it comes to on-the-field stuff, I mean, don't get me wrong. He's made clutch plays. I mean, we all remember that Thursday night game against Kansas City in Kansas City, and he made some good plays. But when you get in the playoffs, nothing. When it's an absolute must game, nothing. And whether if he's familiar with this offense or not, I hate to tell people, but I'm just not expecting big things from Phillip Rivers. One expectation I believe I will say right now is I expect at least 10 interceptions from Phillip Rivers this season. I don't think that's going to change. I know the offensive line helps, but he even said it. He will keep the gunslinger mentality. And, I mean, come on now. There's some things you hope to change, but as a 39-year-old veteran, you're not trying to change anything. You're just trying to go win. That's it for me. I think he's good enough to lead us to the playoffs, but if we're going to try and die by his arm, dude, we might not even make the playoffs, or we'll get a quick first-round exit. Now, I think if you become a run-first team, obviously, I don't know why you probably wouldn't do that with his offensive line and the depth you have at running back. I mean, why wouldn't you? I would. I mean, hey, Phillip, I love you, man, but 10 attempts a game for you. Everyone else gets all the carries. That's where I'm at with Phillip Rivers right now. I hope I'm wrong, but I'm sticking by it.
I mean, I think the Colts are committing to be a run-first offense. I mean, we've seen it this offseason, and I was going to use Nix in my argument, but obviously I can't do that anymore. But still, they've really committed, like they want to be a top-5 rushing team. And I think the beauty with what Phillip Rivers can do, like we saw last year, the reason why the Colts couldn't pull out victories, like there was a lot of close games. The reason they couldn't pull it out is because the passing game fluttered. I mean, Jacoby Brissett couldn't get the job done when need be. And Phillip Rivers, yeah, I know he had a rough year last year, and I know like the interceptions are there and they're concerned. I think for me, it's like he has the best supporting cast in terms of offensive line and a running attack to supplement him. And so he doesn't have to go out there and play hero ball every single week. Like, he doesn't have to do that. Now, I know he's going to make some dumb plays. Like, that's obvious. And Phillip Rivers acknowledges, he even said, like, there's a big difference between, I can't remember, like, taking risks and being stupid, I think is what he said.
Yeah.
And so I think that Rivers understands that. Yeah, he'll still have some boneheaded plays like he does. But I think that's the good thing with Rivers is, like, we're not going to have to rely on his arm, ideally, you know, because the Colts have so much depth at the running back position. Why would they make him do what basically the Chargers had to have him do last year? It just doesn't add up to me. So, yeah, for me, that's kind of where I'm at on Phillip Rivers. You know, I don't think the Colts need him to be the 2018 Phillip Rivers that he was. They just need him to make plays when he has to make plays, right? When the Colts passing offense has to be there. That's what they need from Phillip Rivers. I mean, they don't need him to go out there and throw it 40, 50 times. Just run the ball. That's been their mantra. Run the dang ball. Let's do it. So that's where I'm at with them.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it's going to, like, the running backs that we have are going to complement his game. And if everyone's going to be focused on the run, that's going to open things up in the passing game for him. And I completely agree. I mean, the way he utilizes running backs, I think it's going to be great. But yeah, I mean, him passing wise, I don't think, you know, he's going to have a good season. I don't think he's going to have, you know, great season by any means, but the way he's going to utilize our running backs and the way he's going to make plays when he has to, and it being open for him to do that, I think that's what I'm most looking forward to.
And I mean, I kind of want to challenge you guys on this, that, I mean, we obviously saw all of last season where the Colts struggled in the passing game. When it gets into the clutch, is Phillip Rivers that much better than Jacoby Brissett? I mean, through a 1 through 3 quarter, you got me. He is better than Jacoby Brissett. But in the clutch, when you need to be a smart football player, is he that much better than Jacoby Brissett? Jacoby Brissett protected the football more than Phillip Rivers, but that's kind of what lost him his starting job to begin with. With Phillip Rivers, I mean, people talk about he had a bad year last year. I'm not looking at last year. I'm looking at the whole career. His whole career has been up and down, up and down. Great all-pro season one year, like a top 25 quarterback the next. Next year, come back top 10. Next year, come back top 30. I mean, 2018, like you said, Cody, that's probably been his best year maybe of his career, maybe. They were looked at as Super Bowl champion contenders, and they got absolutely trounced by the New England Patriots. And, I mean, the age, Tom, Phillip, they were kind of around the same age, played absolutely horrible. He was throwing – it was like a 5-year-old being put into Madden. Like, just hike the ball and just throw it somewhere. Like, that's where I'm kind of iffy on Phillip Rivers, because I don't know how much better he's going to be than Jacoby Brissett when it truly matters. I'll take Jacoby Brissett's protecting the ball in the first quarter, but in the fourth quarter, that's where we all couldn't stand it. You need to throw it out there. With Phillip, he'll throw it out there, but I'm not sure if it's going to be the right throw or the right route.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I got to side with Rivers on this one, and it's based on experience and just that how many years he's played in the league, and as old as he is, I think that he's seen a lot of things, and he's hopefully able to diagnose things quicker and faster than Jacoby Brissett has, and be able to execute that. But I'm hoping that, you know, by that point we can really rely on our run game, and we're in a position to have been up, and we don't need a whole lot. But I think I would still trust him over Jacoby Brissett just based on, you know, his tenure in the league and what he's been able to do.
That's fair. I mean, one of the things I want to ask you guys is where are y'all at with this defensive line? Like, what most importantly, obviously, it's kind of looking like Ben Banogu will start at the spot Jabal Shear leaves behind, with Kamoko Toure still trying to work himself back, and Danico Autry is, some people have him as a surprise cut. Some people have him as a backup 3-tech or the other starting defensive end opposite of Justin Houston. Where are you guys at with that depth? Because when I look at the defensive line of years past, I mean, guys, these guys aren't even in the NFL anymore. Mm-hmm. When I look at this depth, I see guys who are mainstays in the NFL, who obviously have talent, who have heart and a relentless attitude. This is my most exciting position by far on this team. We love the linebackers. We love the wide receivers. We love Big Q, AC, Ryan Kelly. We love those guys. But the defensive line position is going to need to bring a lot of energy on game days, because this, I believe the defensive line will dictate how far the Colts can go.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the Buckner one is huge. Like, the Colts have not had an interior defensive lineman probably since I was alive, even close to the caliber of DeForest Buckner. So, I mean, when you think about just the way the Colts defense is structured, that 3-technique position, it is critical to whether or not you're good on defense and you can get pressure. I mean, we saw it last year. Heck, go back to that awful Saints game. Colts had no pressure on Drew Brees. I don't even think they hit him, honestly. It was that bad. And just a player like DeForest Buckner's caliber, I think it just changes your entire defensive line. We talk about Big Q, Quentin Nelson all the time, how he changed the culture of that offensive line. I think Buckner can do something similar to this defensive line. I really do. I think he's just that good of a player, easily top 5 at his position. And that was just what was lacking last year, was just some interior pressure of any kind. I mean, the Colts had 3.5 sacks in total out of their 3-technique the entire year. So for me, I mean, DeForest Buckner is the key piece in that defensive line. And then you mentioned Ben Banogu. Seems like he's having a great camp. Another guy you didn't mention, Al-Qadim Muhammad, a guy that nobody talks about, but I think has a legitimate shot to be the starter week 1. He's been working with Warren Sapp this offseason. He, from all accounts, obviously we haven't been able to go down and see it, he has gotten a lot better as a pass rusher. And, he was always a good, decent, rotational piece, but he's still a young guy, and he's a very talented guy too. So the awesome thing is, with whoever is their defensive end, for me, they have upside and they have a lot of potential to be really effective. So I'm really excited just for this defensive line. The thing that they have not been able to do in years past that they can do now is they can play in waves, and that's what the Colts want to do. They want to keep their guys fresh. So on 3rd down, Justin Houston can go out there and Kamoko Toure can go out there and they can get after the quarterback, and they're not gassed after, whatever. And so I think, for me, I'm excited for, yes, the talent that the Colts have obviously upgraded to, and also just the depth that they have. I mean, you talk about depth at the safety position. The defensive line has some tremendous depth as well.
Yeah, and I'd echo that and say we've had a lot of guys I feel like step up during training camps this year and really, prove their worth when it matters. I mean, like you mentioned Muhammad. I would also mention rookie Rob Windsor. He's been stepping up and showing out. Tyquan Lewis, has had a great camp. Cody, like we talked about last week. So I mean, we just had guys that have stepped up across the board, and DeForest Buckner to lead that line. I think it's going to be a really good year for us.
Mm-hmm. Another depth piece that I want to talk about with you guys is the other trench piece on the other side of the ball in the offensive line. Hands down, we probably have a top 3 starting 5. But after that, I mean, there weren't many options we could do to address that. Josh Andrews left, Joe Haig left. It's starting to look like Joe Haig may not even start for the Buccaneers. But what is going to happen if AC goes down, or if Braden Smith goes down? If these guys go down, what is going to happen? I do not trust LaRaven Clark. I do not trust him. I feel like the dude's been in the league for 20 years and he has not progressed. And I mean, the Colts have made a signing recently, a guy who I'm very familiar with as a TCU diehard football fan. Joey Hunt, even though he has a small frame, I think he can be a very good depth piece for the Colts because went to TCU, 4 years, 3-year starter. Went to Seattle. He started last year under Russell Wilson and played and started 2 playoff games. That's experience. Like you said, Jacob, for Phillip Rivers, you'll go with the experience. Joey Hunt's got that experience. He does have a little bit of a small frame. He might get bulldozed, a little bullied. I mean, you go back to DeForest Buckner versus Joey Hunt in those that I was embarrassed to be a TCU fan. I mean, my goodness, the dude just got trampled. But he's a leader. He is a quarterback of the offensive line. He knows everyone's job. He's not the guy he's kind of like he's got the IQ of a Ryan Kelly. He knows what everyone's assignments is, point out quickly who the mic is, where the blitz is coming from, where the fake is coming from. He can do that for you. I'll definitely take Joey Hunt over Javon Patterson. Danny Pinter, I have a lot of hope for him. But outside of that, guys, I mean, who else? I mean, Chaz Green, the guy who got destroyed by Adrian Claiborne. I mean, I don't know what else there is outside of those 2 linemen. I mean, hopefully you guys can make a strong case for these guys trying to make the roster.
I'm trying to think. Like Jake Eldrenkamp's another name that people have hyped up. I don't know. I haven't really seen anything from him, so I have no idea why people are hyping him up so much. Because I don't think he's never played a snap in the NFL in terms of an actual game. So, I mean, that's another guy. But you're right. There is kind of a concern for me of depth, and especially at the tackle position. I mean, LaRaven Clark, he seems like he's having a pretty good camp from what I've heard, but you're right, Michael. I still don't trust him fully. I mean, we've seen some really bad moments from LaRaven Clark. It's just been a bummer because I wish he would have lived up and be at least a decent backup. But yeah, the tackle position is the biggest concern for me. I'm not so much concerned of the interior because you have Joey Hunt, you have some of these guys that seem like they're doing okay. But yeah, definitely tackle position for me is a little bit of a worry. We'll see what happens when the cutdowns happen. Maybe the Colts sign another tackle, hopefully. But yeah, I totally hear you there.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's so not looked at and scrutinized because of how good our first 5 are. People aren't as concerned about our backup, but what if someone goes down? Like you said, and you miss that key piece. I mean, that can cause a lot of problems. And I'm most excited for Danny Pinter. But outside of that, I mean, Javon Patterson hasn't been having a good camp. Some of these other guys, haven't even played a snap, like you said. So it's really hard to judge because of how good, our starting 5 is. We just hope and pray that they stay healthy the whole season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, I got to ask you guys about this kicker competition because, I mean, maybe it hasn't hit us yet, guys, but this is our last show before we start getting into matchups, game predictions. I mean, if you're not already excited to get into that stuff for Jacksonville, I don't know what's wrong with you because it literally hit me yesterday. Dude, we have 1 week before we actually start preparing, and that is exciting. One thing we need to clean up before we make those decisions, though, is the kicker competition. Apparently it's been going back and forth. Hot Rod goes 4 of 7. Chase McLaughlin goes 7 of 7. Hot Rod goes 6 of 7. Chase McLaughlin goes 4 of 7. It's been going back and forth, guys. Are you nervous about whoever wins the starting job? Is there going to be a little bit of inconsistency? And I want to get your guys' predictions for this. And for me, I'm going to go with Chase McLaughlin. I mean, I get it. Rodrigo Blankenship, he was big time in Georgia. He made a lot of tough kicks. And the more memorable ones to me are the ones in the Rose Bowl against Oklahoma because there was a lot riding on those, and he nailed them. But I don't know. I've been hearing some not so good stuff about his NFL range, which is crazy because he was kicking the same distance in college. But for some reason, they're not going down at the same consistent rate in training camp. Chase McLaughlin, he is my pick because I liked how he showed up for us last year when all this Adam Vinatieri drama was going on. I'm curious to see what your guys' take is on that.
Yeah, you can go ahead, Jacob.
Yeah, so I think this is an extremely crucial position that they need to nail down. For so long, we've had Adam Vinatieri. We haven't had to worry about it. But, I mean, this is extra points. This is field goals in the crunch time and when you really need it. So this is an important position. And, last week I was really high on McLaughlin. But, now Hot Rod's coming back and they're just, flip-flopping, it seems like. And what I think is interesting to note is Hot Rod made a 56-yarder and a 57-yarder in the last live scrimmage where McLaughlin missed those two. So you talk about his range, and, that's good that he hit those then, but then how consistent can that be into the season? I have to give the nod to McLaughlin because of his experience and how he's already familiar with the team, familiar with the NFL. But I also think, Blankenship is not a bad look either if he gets more time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm Team Chase McLaughlin. I've always been Team Chase McLaughlin. I mean, like you said, Michael, for the situation, historically bad situation at the kicking position last year for the Colts, and for Chase McLaughlin to come in and nail all his extra points, miss one field goal out of all his field goals he attempted, and just have the distance that was just, I think, just wide a little bit. But overall, I liked what he did coming in. He was a rookie last year. He came into that situation, performed very, very well. And for me, I was kind of like, well, I get it that you brought in more competition, but unless he's historically bad in this training camp, I don't see him giving that up. I don't see the Colts just moving on from him because it's like, if it's not broken, why are you trying to fix it?
Right.
Like, it doesn't make any logical sense for me to move on from him if it's been pretty much a lock the whole time. Because, you think about it, like, yeah, Hot Rod didn't miss an extra point when he was in college, but extra points in college compared to extra points in the NFL, they're different, right? They're different. They're longer. And also you don't have 180-pound safety, coming towards you. You have a 300-pound defensive lineman coming at you. Like, that's a lot different, and that's a lot more mentally taxing on you. And so for me, I was intrigued to see how they handle. We heard they were doing pretty well in, like, training camp, but, like, live scrimmages, how are they going to handle the pressure? I mean, it seems like overall, I know Chase McLaughlin didn't have a great day the second time in scrimmage, but overall, if you take those 2 days, he's performed better. Yeah. So I think for me, and people always talk about Hot Rod's range. I mean, Chase McLaughlin doesn't have a small leg either. He was nailing 55, 56 yarders as well. So for me, it's like, yeah, maybe Hot Rod has a slightly bigger leg, but I mean, the same way with like a quarterback and an arm. Like, just because you have a big arm doesn't mean you're a good quarterback. Just because you have a big leg doesn't mean you're a good kicker. It's about consistency. And Chase McLaughlin has proved to me that he's far more consistent at this point in his career. Now, who knows? Maybe Hot Rod's one of the best kickers in a few years. But honestly, I think that's where the Colts should go right now, is go to the guy you already know who's been in the system, who's performed well. He's still very young. So you have to think if he keeps performing well, he could be your kicker for the next decade, hopefully. Who knows? But that's kind of where I'm at, with the kicker. I'm going Team Chase as well.
Yeah. Like, one last thing for me, guys, that I want to talk. I want to entertain your trade ideas because there are two guys on this team that I really look at as trade assets. It's not really for Chris Ballard to look to send away, but other teams looking at those players and wanting them. The first one, Malik Hooker. Now, there's a couple of teams out there that I think he could fit well with. I think, maybe Xavier Woods in Dallas just went down. Does Dallas maybe try to trade for Malik Hooker? Maybe, probably not right now. I highly doubt Chris Ballard will go with that now. But if close to the trade deadline, Malik Hooker is not reaching Chris Ballard's expectations, Julian Blackmon, Tavon Wilson are getting the job done, where does that lead up? And if anyone, then my next guy is Anthony Walker. The only way I see him getting traded is if it's to the Philadelphia Eagles because they have a need at the middle linebacker position. And I honestly think if the Philadelphia Eagles, which I think they could, and if they were to entertain that idea, they will offer a second-round pick. I think Chris Ballard is accepting that in a heartbeat because you're getting draft capital and you still have Bobby Okereke. And at the Sam position, when you play your Tampa 2, you have Zaire Franklin, who has had a great camp from what we're hearing. I want to get your ideas and opinions on those.
I mean, I heard a rumor also with Malik Hooker. I don't know how true this is, but I heard a rumor that like the Colts or the Browns had called the Colts about acquiring Malik Hooker because obviously their safety Grant Delpit just went down with an injury. So, you know, and I think the suggested trade was like 2 second-rounders or something like that. And then like Chris Ballard said, throw in David Njoku and he got a deal. I don't know how true that is, but I feel like if that was to happen, I would say absolutely. Take my money.
A heartbeat.
Yeah. And so, you know, because you didn't pick up Hooker's fifth-year option, so, like, you're not committed to him long-term. And so, for me, I would absolutely do that. But, yeah, you're right. It depends on the safeties and the health of the safeties. I am honestly okay with George Odom being your starter. I really am. I'm to that point where he's played well enough in spurts that I'm good handing him that starting position, at least for right now, until Julian Blackmon's fully healthy.
Yep.
But that'll be the key. If Blackmon's fully healthy and he feels like he can go out there, I mean, you could probably have him as a backup. But, like, if you can get that kind of value and also help your tight end position, I would do that. I really would. As far as Anthony Walker, I'm not trading Anthony Walker at all. No way. No how. I mean, yeah, I know Bobby Okereke. Everybody talks about how Bobby Okereke is great, and I love Bobby Okereke. Anthony Walker provides so much more in terms of knowledge and leadership. I mean, he was a captain. He was a captain in college, and Darius Leonard has gone on record and said, Anthony Walker allows me to play the way I do. And so Bobby Okereke, as good of a player as he is right now, I mean, he's a captain of that linebacking group. He's a captain of that defense. And so for me, that is so valuable. And he's not going to command a lot of money, you know, when you re-sign him, I don't feel like. So for me, I'm not really trading Anthony Walker right now. I know there's that appeal. But, yeah, for me right now, no. I like this linebacker core as they are. I think they work really well off each other. And if you have 3 really, really good linebackers, I mean, that's great. I would love that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you know, Walker's assured to stay. I think his chemistry and his leadership speaks volumes. And I think especially with this year, with just how crazy everything has been in the offseason and with the training camps, you need that consistency. You need that leadership. And I just love what he's been able to do. And plus, if we can keep Darius Leonard playing the way he's playing, then I want to do everything possible we can to keep him playing the way he's playing. Now, Malik Hooker, if the Browns offer that trade, I think I would have to take it, especially with you know, Doyle and Burton going down. That would be awesome. Njoku, you know, said he wanted out. Now he's wanting to stay back. But whatever. I think the Colts didn't pick up Hooker's option to try to challenge him. You know, you bring in Blackmon, you bring in some other guys that have proven what they can do. I think you challenge him to really prove it. And honestly, that's not a bad thing, even if you're still looking to trade him, because he has a good outing that's just going to up his trade value, up, you know, everything that he's worth. And then, you know, even if it's at the end of the season, if the Colts are like, all right, you know, you proved it, we like you moving forward, great, sign him. If not, then I mean, his trade value at that point hopefully is much higher if he's had, you know, this good of a season.
Yeah, for Anthony Walker, I mean, I only see the team Philadelphia willing to trade for him because they have such a big need, and I think they're thinking Super Bowl. But other than that, I'm with you, Cody. I don't know if teams will be willing to trade for Anthony Walker, nor do I think Chris Ballard will be willing to trade him. Mm-hmm. I'm still iffy on if he gets re-signed because there's other contracts you have to hand out. So is Anthony the odd man out because of that insurance of Bobby Okereke? I mean, it's a good place to be in because you still get production. But, I mean, I've said it on the show before, Cody. Anthony Walker is a very underrated linebacker in this league. Darius Leonard gets all the hype. He gets all, and deservingly so, he gets all the recognition. But what Anthony Walker does on the field the communicator on that team. It's not Darius Leonard. It's Anthony Walker. I'm not sure if people know that. And sometimes it can be both. But Anthony Walker is sort of the leader on this defense, a vocal guy. And we have quite a few vocal guys. Anthony Walker is smart. And it's I think people forget that he was a 7th round pick out of Northwestern. 7th rounder out of Northwestern. I mean, I'll be honest, I didn't expect much, but in his second year, I saw the jump he made. And then last year, I will say this, guys, outside of KJ Wright and Bobby Wagner in Seattle, I look at Indianapolis as the second best linebacking crew in the NFL because you look at youth, the athleticism, experience, production. I mean, I'm taking that every day. Anything else from you guys?
Trying to go through here.
Yeah, I think we covered everything I had, really.
Oh, I got one thing. Okay. I want to discuss final roster predictions. Okay. If y'all are up for that, I will even go first so y'all guys can, get who y'all want in store. I have my list ready. Are y'all good for it?
Let's do it. I'm good.
Yeah, because by the time next week, I'm ready to start talking about Jacksonville. I'm done with training camp. I'm ready to start talking about Jacksonville. So, for the roster, at quarterback, I am going with Phillip Rivers, Jacoby Brissett, Jacob Eason. There was no surprise there. Obviously, there was some hesitation that I'm hearing about putting Jacob Eason on the practice squad. That's not going to happen because immediately once he gets put on the practice squad, someone is going to sign him very quickly. So that's not going to happen. Running back, I'm going to put Marlon Mack as the starter. He's proven, he's earned it. And there was a guy out there that said he had a subpar performance. Well, you're a subpar football IQ guy, okay? That's what I have to say to you. Jonathan Taylor, Nyheim Hines, Jordan Wilkins. I think the Roosevelt Knicks cut opens that roster spot for him. Wide receiver, I'm going 5. T.Y. Hilton, Paris Campbell as the number 2, Michael Pittman Jr. as the number 3, Zach Pascal as the number 4, Reese Fountain as the number 5. Tight end, Jack Doyle, Trey Burton, Mo Alley Cox, and I'm going to go Andrew Vollert. I like what he brings, some kind of versatility. I like him in the pass game. In the run game, can be shaky, but I like his overall makeup. We obviously know the starting 5 on the offensive line. For the depth, I'm going to go with 3 guys, depth guys. LaRaven Clark, Joey Hunt, Danny Pinter. I think those are some hints I gave earlier in the show. I just have to take talent, experience, and whoever you have to take at the tackle spot. I think the Colts are, I wouldn't even be surprised if Chris Ballard makes a trade, not like a booming trade, a 2nd-round pick, 3rd-round pick, maybe throw a 5th-round pick for a depth guy. Someone who you just want as a depth piece, maybe not as the future yet, but as a depth piece. I think that's an element that people should be looking at from Chris Ballard. That's the offensive line, and that's the offense. Apparently, I got 24 guys on the offense. On the defense, starting lineup, Ben Banigou, DeForest Buckner, Grover Stewart, Justin Houston. And Cody, I know how much you love Grover Stewart and how much you loved his play last year. I'm going to roll with you, man, because I definitely think he is a strong nose tackle, and I'll take him over Tyquan Lewis, Danico Autry, and obviously Sheldon Day. I think he'll miss week 1. But when it comes to these depth guys, I got Danico Autry behind Ben Banigou and then Kamoko Toure, because Kamoko Toure is still working back from that injury. At the 3 tech, I have DeForest Buckner and Tyquan Lewis. Tyquan Lewis, I believe, will be the backup to DeForest Buckner because I think he's earned it. He's probably going to be the MVP of training camp. The nose tackle, Grover Stewart, I'm going to go Robert Windsor, Sheldon Day. I think Robert Windsor has shown, not only is he given just so much energy, but I think he gets it. I think he understands it. And this is something that I didn't see coming out of Penn State. And Cody, you remember I said I thought he was just going to be a camp body. He'll be cut. But I think from what I'm seeing, he gets it. He understands that mentality. And then at the other defensive end position, Justin Houston, Al-Qadim Muhammad, Danico Autry. Now, it's kind of hard to find a spot where Danico Autry has a sole purpose on this defensive line because he can play everywhere. But where is his true position? That's yet to be seen. The linebacker room, Darius Leonard, Anthony Walker, Zaire Franklin are going to be my starters. And then E.J. Speed behind Darius Leonard, Bobby Okereke behind Anthony Walker. And here's a surprise. I'm taking Jordan Glasgow behind Zaire Franklin. I'm going to take him over Matthew Adams because that's just how good of a special teamer he is. The loss of Roosevelt Nix and Marvell Tell, I think, opened that door for him, and I think he has a good shot to make the roster. The corners, Kenny Moore, Rock Ya-Sin, Xavier Rhodes, TJ Carey, Isaiah Rodgers. I think that should probably be everyone's depth chart for the corners. You obviously know what you have in Kenny Moore, Rock Ya-Sin. You hope and you would think Isaiah Rodgers is taking on a bigger role because of the opt-out of Marvell Tell. TJ Carey, he's a veteran, but this secondary is going to be determined by how good or how bad Xavier Rhodes plays this year because he has a lot on his career and the success of the Indianapolis Colts riding on his play. But that's my depth chart. For free safety, Malik Hooker, Tavon Wilson, Julian Blackman, obviously. And then strong safety, Kari Willis, George Odom, kicker, Chase McLaughlin, Rigoberto Sanchez, Luke Rhodes. Those are my guys. Cody, I am really interested to hear what yours are.
All righty. And I may not get all the way to 53. I may get over. I may get under because I'm not fully prepared. But I'll go. I like the quarterbacks. I like the three. Obviously, Rivers, Brissett, and Eason. Kelly's cut. I know there's some Kelly truthers out there, but no way, no how he's beating out Jacob Eason. Running backs, Taylor, Mack. I think Mack's a starter. Mack, Taylor, Hines, and then Wilkins. I think you keep all four of them. No fullback anymore. I got Hilton. I think Pascal's going to be number 2. I'll just throw in Pittman at 3 because we don't really know what Paris Campbell's role potentially is going to be exactly. Then Campbell, Reese Fountain, Ashton Doolin. Tight ends, you got Jack Doyle, Mo Alley Cox. I think since Trey Burton is injured, you're going to keep Andrew Vollard on the roster. So you'll keep 4 tight ends technically. Obviously, you got your 5 starters at the offensive line. I'm keeping Pinter. I'm keeping Joey Hunt. And I'm keeping Clark, obviously. And then I'm probably going to keep Jake Eldrenkamp. I think they keep 9. I think they honestly do. For the defensive line, I think Al-Qadim Muhammad's going to be your starter at the other defensive end. I'm going Muhammad. I'm going Buckner. I'm going Stewart. And then I'm going Houston. That means I got Toure. I got Banagoo. I got Autry. So you see, that's 7, I believe. I think you do keep Windsor, and then you keep Sheldon Day as well. For the linebackers, I'm going Leonard, obviously. I'm going Walker at Mike. I'm going – because the Colts created a position for Bobby Okereke. They basically created a Sam linebacker. I think they do the same this year. Those are your 3 starters. Zaire Franklin, key backup, E.J. Speed. Jordan Glasgow, I agree. I think he's going to make this roster. He's going to be a key special teams guy, so I'm keeping him there as well. The corner position, you got Rock, you got Xavier, you got Kenny Moore, you got Isaiah Rodgers, TJ Carey. That's 5. I think just because of the amount of safeties, you only keep 5, honestly. Just the amount. I mean, it's crazy. I think you're going to keep 5 safeties. So I think obviously you got Hooker, you got George Odom at the free safety, Julian Blackman as well. Then you got Corey Willis, you got Tavon Wilson. So those are your 5 then. And then Chase and then Rigoberto. So I don't know. I might be off one or a couple. I'm not sure, but that's kind of what I think is going to happen. So just if I am off a couple, then just take the last person at a certain position and fill in the gaps, I guess. So that's kind of my prediction, my rundown.
All right, Jacob, where are you at?
Yeah, man. Well, for the sake of time, I'll just point out where I might be a little different from you guys. So in the wide receiver core, I like, Pittman, Hilton, Paris Campbell, Zach Pascal. I like Reese Fountain. I also like Desmond Patton. I think he probably will be on the practice squad, but I really like his potential, so I hope they keep him at least in the system to see what he has in store. Tight ends, yeah, I think we're going to have to keep 4. It's already proven that Burton and Doyle, have had injuries, although Doyle's back. I mean, we don't know when that can flare up again. We talk about the offensive line. I like, as backups. I not personally like them as starters here, but we got Clark, Pinter. I like Joey Hunt, like you said. Eldrin Camp, I think, is a nice pick, but I guess we'll just have to see how that shakes out. I'm not really confident in our backups there. Defense, I'm much more excited about. Houston, Buckner, Muhammad. I really want Tyquan Lewis to get in the starting role somehow, see if they can slot him in on the line. I think that'd be really cool. And then as far as backups go, yeah, Kamoko Toure, Ben Banigou, Grover Stewart. I really like Robert Windsor. And then Sheldon Day, I'm a little iffy on just because he's been injured. We haven't really seen what we can do, and they're not, like we mentioned earlier, they're not elaborating on the injury, so you're not sure where he stands, if he's going to get to play and when that will be. Linebackers, yeah, Darius Leonard, EJ Speed is the backup, Anthony Walker. I'm really high on Jordan Glasgow. I think he's going to be really cool, especially on special teams as well, if they can work him in there. Bobby Okereke, I think like Cody mentioned, you have to have him in that Sam position. And Zaire Franklin has had a great camp, so I think he gets a nod there as well. Yeah, cornerbacks, Rock Ya-Sin, Kenny Moore, Xavier Rhodes, TJ Carey. Isaiah Rodgers, I'm also super excited about. He's also been doing some kick returning and punt returning and looks to be super fast and explosive, so I like that. And then, yeah, you got to keep the 5 safeties. I think that's just, it's going to be nice to have depth at that position, and I think that all these guys are worthy of rostering, and hopefully you can use them in different capacities as well.
Cool.
Okay.
Awesome.
Do we have anything else from you guys?
No, this has been a longer episode, so we probably should wrap it up here. But all righty. Well, thanks, guys, so much for listening to another episode of Colts Brawl. For Jacob, Michael, and myself, appreciate you guys. Colts football's almost here, baby. So excited for that. We're almost here. I mean, at the time of this recording, 13 days away. By the time it comes out, it'll probably be maybe 10 days. Who knows when we're going to release this, but it's coming very, very soon nonetheless. Super excited for that. For all of us at Colts Brawl, thanks, guys, so much. And I hope you guys stay safe out there.